Well, hello there, everyone. Here to show you right here is the family friend story here, and basically to talk about right here. This right here will be example right here, along with the friend of ours that we knew from those couple of years ago, along with the rest of the family right here. You have right there is my mom, and of course with the other siblings, and but talking about the for like that family friend story right here of for visiting college campuses. And if we're talking about an actual college campus back in those days, that for the University of Missouri, that there would be like what you call they have the Columbia College, and then there's also Moberly Community College. There's other college campuses. But you have right here of talking about right here that I went and drew in the details right here of this memory right here. And I know that we can see this right here that I drew this right there. If that was right there was supposed to be example right there of me right there. And I'm like, yeah, that way I drew myself in position right there. And in case if anybody were warned to where that if you're trying to tell a story and that maybe with the story that you don't have very many photos to work with, and as well as getting other sorts of feedback from anybody else that you would talk to during the time, and you're likely worrying too that from what all that you can remember from that trip, and I know that in case if anybody were to ask me too that about field trips though, that field trips, almost all students are going to look forward to field trips, and I know during this time though that it was like that this field trip basically was known as for a going out of town field trip, because during this time that we were all living in St. Charles, Missouri during that time, and then visited for Columbia, Missouri, and from Columbia to Kansas City, Springfield, Chesterfield, different parts of Missouri, areas of Missouri, but talk about for a type of field trip though, that with this field trip that I drew is in case of you say field trips though, and if I can remember right, that during this field trip right here, that I can remember that being some of the time that I was kind of bored to where that because I know during the time the friend of ours that was attending the college there at the University of Missouri. And you're likely thinking as to where that during that time that maybe you were the only boy, the only guy that you went on this field trip. So it's that knowing about for if I can remember right that I'm like dreams I even had about you're likely were to where that if you're going to be visiting the college, and you're likely thinking too that with this person that they were pretty close to maybe a few that they were closer to a few people that you knew more than they were to you, but still that the only time going into the museums and then taking a tour around campus, so the only time that she really talked to me is whenever that we were going into one of those buildings, and I might drew myself as if I were during that time, if I can remember right, what I was wearing during that time. I think if I remember, it was flip-flops, so it was around the springtime. So whenever, the way I drew this picture right here is actually showing right here, this right here was actually some sort of campsite. So I know that the way I drew this right here, that I drew this as if I were to be sitting along with 4 or 5 other ladies, and then you'd be talking, and then there'll be these sandwich baggies in case if anybody that may warrant to where that during the time of that visit over there at the University of Missouri, that we would have lunch, and then also that if we would I don't know if I can remember right, that toured through the museums, and I don't think we even picked up any souvenirs. But still though, that with during the time of that visit, I can remember that some of the time that I was kind of what you call bored. I'm there are times where I kind of got bored, and in case of anybody that may want to where that most field trips though, that you would look forward to most field trips, but if I can remember right during the time that after about maybe 40 or so minutes or something like that, close to an hour, that we were visiting the University of Missouri, and I can remember that during that time too, that I'm like, I did not really even know what college was, and so let's just say that if there's a situation that goes by that, yeah, that somebody wants to start talking about something, or something like that, about maybe if it's about the tuition cost, about that to be able to help pay for somebody else that just to be able to get a good scholarship if they're wanting to go to that same school, if they're wanting to go to college one of these days, and knowing about what that you're able to work out so far as the financial arrangement goes. But you have right here, this right here will be the details right here of the van right here that we all were driving, and we were all riding in. But in case of anybody that may want to, where pictures though, I kept thinking too, if I want to go ahead and use some Photoshop work for some of this right here, just to kind of explain a little bit more of the story. But basically, the story goes by as to where that based on the family friend story, that taking a tour through the campus, and yeah, in case if anybody were to ask me too, that why is it that you got kind of bored during the time that you were visiting the University of Missouri, and I could maybe say too that, well, I did not really even know what college was during the time, and I kept thinking too that if it was in St. Louis or something during the time, but still I can remember that during that field trip that I was like one of the only guys that went on that trip, and so it was like quite a few the personnel that I was riding with, most of them were all ladies, so it's like in case if anybody were to ask me that why were you so bored during the time, why were you even daydreaming during the time? But I can say also that from this trip right here, that knowing about going on this trip, and I can remember that one of the things that I was thinking about too was the dreams that I've been had. I'm like, during that time that was around the time that for how close that you were to knowing somebody very well, and then for about what they were going to school for, and then for how close that you got right there is my mom right there, and so in case of anybody that may want to where that about how close you were to your mom, and just thinking as to where that that if this right here was supposed to be like a moment to where that a picture that was taken about all 3 or 4 or 5 other guests that were there out of town, from out of town to go to a game or something like that, to go to a softball game, and you're going to be close to your mom, and so drew this right here is like if I were to be draw all the whole group right there, and so it just like as to where if I were to be telling a story here, and let's just say that if nobody really knows where to start, and you're likely to say, well, you go ahead and start. You start and tell me about what's on your mind and what you want to think about. But during this time, though, it seemed like that during that time that for the most part, though, that even though it's something that you start talking about something that maybe that happened at nearly 15, 20 years ago, and thinking this too is to where that number one, that most students will maybe want to where that how you'd be able to pay to go to college, because I know quite a few high school graduates that ask that question to where that if they're wanting to look into going to a college in the near future and knowing about how they're going to be able to pay for it. And I guess the first thing that's going to come to their mind is that you're working out on the college savings, but then also working it out to where that that they were to get a job that would help pay for that, to the scholarships and as well as for the grants. So it's like that with me though, since I was like one of the only guys that went on this trip here, it's like thinking as toward I pretty much is like knowing about who's going to take charge of talking about a certain conversation, and out of the whole conversation that goes by is to where you go ahead and start. for whatever that you want to talk about. And so yeah, if we're going to be talking about a certain moment of time, then it seems like as to where that especially that if you're going to be with your mom, and maybe if you're going to be with a friend of yours that you know from church or somewhere like that, or if it's going to be anything else that you're going to want to talk about, and you're likely thinking too this. So I drew this right here. This is supposed to take place from back in early of 1995. But during that time, I really did not even know what college was. So it seems like after this trip, I can remember asking my mom and dad both about, about paying for college. Because I know a lot of kids, even grandkids, are going to ask that question to where that they keep thinking about going to college and what they want to do in their future. And I know which I think it's pretty normal for kids to be talking about that, about what they want to do so far as their future goes, about paying for college. But sometimes some parents may even say that take it one thing at a time. You're only in the 5th grade. If I can remember right, that almost everybody in the family talked about the college possibilities. If anything, whenever they were about maybe 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, at least 11 years old, that they probably talked about going to college and, wanting to be just like mommy or daddy, that one of them, they went to college and then they were able to get a good paying job, that sort of stuff. But still, though, that with talking about college possibilities here, that you've heard before that, college is expensive. But let's just say that with tuition cost, that, so in case if anybody weren't aware that, for whenever you start talking about a particular topic, such as if it's a family friend story, but in case if anybody were to ask me that, did you go into the museums and maybe were you able to take a detour through the through the state, through the union or something like that. I'm like, yeah, other buildings, over there off the campus. But still, though, that knowing about whenever I was with this group right here, that a lot of times that I just kind of did my own thing, and I'm like, yeah, that sometimes that I would even have my head. I would have my head looking down those couple of times, just because. I'm like, just because. I'm like, yep, just because. I would have my head looking down those couple of times, just because that, the person, that I was with that just want to know that, whenever I was on this field trip right here, it was all about as to where I really did not even know where the location was, so it kept thinking as to where it was like just following the footsteps about where everybody was going. And I know most field trips too, that some kids that might even have it to where that that if you're going to be if this is supposed to be like a field trip right here, and somebody like I say that you're just kind of just following along with everybody else, even if it was the St. Louis Science Center, that you're like. You're not really, showing anybody really anything in particular, just not at the moment. But, you're just kind of following along with everybody. So if somebody's going to be walking east or west, or so of campus, and so yeah, just following along, and so I know that, so sometimes it seems like that if you're going to be talking about something or working on something, then it seems like, I can remember listening to music, during the time of this road trip and, other songs. And if I can remember right, I remember the road trip pretty well, compared to visiting the college, because I know that there was a lot of, quite a few, I'm like, even though if it happened about maybe, nearly, 22 years ago, that, with all that I can remember it was a pretty nice, hot sunny day, that morning. It was probably about, I think it was about 7, 8 a.m. whenever we went with a friend of ours, over there to the University of Missouri. And it's like, that with, and being the only guy on this trip too, and sometimes it seems like to where that, You know, exactly. What does being the only guy, being the only gentleman have anything to do with going on, field trips, especially that if you're going to be going with a cousin of yours, or if you're going to be going with your mom and maybe with your aunt or somebody like that, three other people, and yeah, if you're going to be going as a group, but then you're talking about that maybe somebody that you haven't seen in a very long time, and during the time that I really did not even know really about what to talk about, other than that they asked me questions. Well, what do you think? I'm like, yeah. Let's just say if the field trip was mainly about maybe relocation arrangements, such as if it's going to be financial aid, relocation arrangements, and anything like that, and anything about relocation arrangements. And so the first question that's going to come to me is that, hey, well, what do you think? What do you think of the new place or something? So yeah. And I can tell anybody here, yeah, getting out of the movie theaters. Sometimes going from, during that time that the movie Pocahontas, whenever that was playing in theaters, I think it was the first movie of Pocahontas came out, I think it was back in 1994. After, the family and I, after we went to go see the movie, then we went to, I think it was the Chesterfield Mall. I think, yeah, the Mid-River, the Mid-Rivers Mall. I think it was the Mid-Rivers Mall, but some mall, but I can remember that, if I can remember right, it might have been in the mall. There was a movie theater in the mall, but after getting out of the movie, then I can remember that we were talking to somebody who was working there, I think in the jewelry department or in the cosmetic department there in the mall, and I can remember that, about 3 or 4 other people, she was asking a group of us, I'm like, yeah, about 4 or 5 other people that I was with, and, what'd you think about the movie? And then she pointed at me, and she was like, hey, you didn't say anything, young man. What did you think about the movie? And if I can remember right, I think I mentioned something about that. It was all right, boring, not really my type of movie. But, yeah, I don't know if anybody has, if anybody who knows Pocahontas movie very well, Pocahontas 2, but if I can remember right, that seen that movie in theaters, and I was not very impressed with it, but I know, like with my parents, that, whenever you go to a movie, that sometimes you get bored with that, but still, and I know that we're all going to have stories to share, it seems, no matter about what source of information that we do have, but I know with my mom and I that, whenever going on this trip here, and that, like he's just thinking, is toward it, that, for knowing about who wants to start, the conversation, that, whenever usually you want to start bringing up some good memories, and let's just say one of those is going to be about is toward that, whenever you were in a spelling contest, back in the first grade, that, you're thinking about is that, for what you've been doing, working on, with your college degree, and I know, my mom and I would probably be having these conversations, such as to where that, we can remember that back whenever you were in grade school, that you were in a spelling contest those once or twice about the dinosaurs and about how to spell certain words, and just think about it's about your college education, and so it's like, yeah, that the first person, like it seems like almost all the time, it's like you say that, yeah, if you're going to be in a group conversation like this right here, maybe with somebody that you know from work, or maybe from a church or a church member, and people are likely learn to her that, you start. So yeah, trying to decide about who's going to start the conversation before, like, yeah. So it seems like, is that really about that if anybody has a topic that they wanted to talk about. But let's just say, though, that, even though I'm like, yeah, even if it was something that happened nearly 22 years ago, but let's just say if it was something that only happened about maybe 22 hours ago, and you're trying to, decide about, okay, you start. So yeah, whenever you have these discussions, maybe with a mom or a cousin, or maybe with a brother or a sister, or maybe if it is a friend of yours that maybe from work, that you want to go ahead start a conversation, and maybe that. Maybe that it could have been maybe a conversation from similar stories about somebody who went to that same event or something like that. Somebody who went to the same college, but then they want to talk about their certain stories. So yeah, that certain things that you want to talk about. But let's just say this situation could be a bias toward that they're going to wait. They're waiting for me to start. So yeah, sometimes it seems like that if somebody wants something to talk about, they before they start talking about something, that they say, well, you go ahead and start, But so yeah, that we all have our memories, but I guess it's if that's is that really the main reason to why people don't really want to start? They want you to start. They want you to go first, just because is it just because that they don't really know what to talk about, or is it just because that the way that you start the speech just makes them feel more confident about anything else that they want to share? So yeah, that I've come up to those moments once or twice, and actually a couple of times that anything that I want to talk about, and people are waiting for me to to start. Well, you go ahead and you go ahead and start. What's your favorite memory about this at a certain time? And I could say is that I don't know if I really want to start the conversation just by saying this, to where that my shoe fell off whenever I was trying to walk through the door, or maybe that if there was anything about anything embarrassing, such as anybody saying that I can remember that back your glasses fell off whenever you were trying to so during this time of this trip right here, I can remember that I was kind of following the group right here. But let's just say that following the group, such as that really nobody's really talking to you, and nobody's really asking you any sorts of questions or anything like that. But anybody really that whenever you begin a conversation, it seems like exactly that nobody really wants to talk to you until maybe you bring up a topic that most interests them. So let's just say that if it's your mom, or maybe if it is somebody that you know from church that is going to maybe ask you a couple of questions, and so it's like, say, so let's just say if the situation goes by as this, to where that people don't really know what to talk about until that maybe you give them some ideas. So you give them a layout of, you mention about, okay, some examples of what we can talk about. So just like normal, mother and son, or if it's father and son, or if it's just, the three friends, they're going to be talking about something. And, so yeah, the family friend story, that, there might be certain moments that maybe we cannot remember, but maybe we can remember, but we're just trying to figure out how to explain them, how to talk about them. And sometimes it seems like that I come up to those moments to where that whenever I am going to be, whenever we're going to be at those moments to where that we're all together, everybody, about 4 or maybe 7 people all together, we're all together, but then maybe 1 or 2 of these people are going to say that, well, you start, you say something, and maybe they can maybe refresh my memory, or that anything about, for what you wanted to mention about the whole conversation, But really, the chances are of most ladies, well, maybe 1 or 2, or most of the time with most meetings and the conversations, that, there's going to be a speaker, and sometimes that, they don't really need my help of, talking about stuff, because whenever, especially if I'm working on my homework, especially, that if somebody's confused about what I need to do, or by the time that helps them engage in power, if you want to call it like engage in power, to where that whenever you're going to be doing a presentation, such as if I was the host, and then maybe that you're going to be talking to maybe 3 other people that they don't really know they don't know what to talk about until you actually show them something. Until you actually show them something, and then they're going to go and take up the whole conversation. You show them something, and then they're going to want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about what they want to talk, what they think about what you should do. But anyway, But talking about for like the college campus right here, from back in 1995, that, likely one or two that, from back in 1995, that, since then, more buildings have come, to the city of Columbia, but still that, we are also talking about that, that in case if anybody were to ask me this, to where like that during this time of this field trip right here, that really, that, you didn't really say very much, and I know that I think the first thing I remember that that I kind of like to say that I was daydreaming during this time of this field trip. So say, why were you so bored during the time of this field trip? And I'm like, well, really, that I did not even know what college was, and plus the people I was with, we didn't really know each other very well. So that so in case if anybody likely weren't too that. During that time that, were you pretty shy to be around a group of people? So it's like, during that time, I was only about 11 years old during that time. So during that time that I was pretty shy to be around about 5 other people and knowing about that any source of a field trip, like that I'm going to be on and wanting to know about exactly about you. You're just going to, just hang around and follow the group or something like, the Boy Scouts too. The Boy Scouts too. It was like I was not very talkative even during the Boy Scouts, but if we're talking about college years though. But you have right here is me right here, and that if this right here was supposed to be like a group of people right here, and you got right there is the van right there, but I can remember riding in the van, and I can remember walking around on campus, but it's still that the best ways of how we can describe about college, tuition cost, and so it's like, say, after 1 or 2 field trips, and then that's going to give somebody else an idea about, okay, they want to go to college. This person's already talking about their college year. I'm like, that they want to go to college, and the younger daughter is already talking about going to college, or the oldest son or the youngest son is thinking about going to college. So any sorts of ideas that get their mind to where that that they're talking about their future. But still though that I know with me though that that during this time though I was like the only guy who was on this field trip. So it's like if you're going to be if you don't really know very many people on this, and I know in case of anybody that may ask me that, during that time that, you were, what were you thinking about necessarily? I was thinking about the dream that I had. I'm like thinking about is to where that, I used to have dreams about that. I used to have dreams about people giving me a lot of source of attention, and I think it was, my birthday was coming up too in July, so I had a lot of that on my mind, and the people were always picking on me about medical concerns and all that other stuff, and so I was always thinking about that a lot of times. Is that people always ask you about about the reasons to why it's hard for you to understand and read and understand poem writings and storytelling and that sorts of stuff. But really, at the same time that somebody's going to maybe ask me to where that you go ahead and start the conversation. Start by, I'm like, and usually, in case of anybody say, usually it's ladies first, huh? Ladies first, the ones that say you want to know about, why is it a lot of times that the ladies are first, but still though that, in order to be able to bring up get a good start on a good conversation, it seems like the topic goes by is to where the best understanding about this field trip right here. And it seems like a lot of it is all about interest, and one of those interests will probably be is about anything about any source of interest that comes to a few other people's mind too. And sometimes it's like, why do you want me to start? And so let's just say that if I was the only guy that went on this trip right here, and let's just say that somebody were to ask me to say, something, I'm like, what do you think about all this? I'm like, during that time that, I, if I can remember right, that, what exactly, were you doing during that time anyway, back in early in 1995? If I can remember right, that I was just I was in the 5th grade during the time, going on to middle school, and I can just remember that during that time that I was we were all working on starting middle school during that time, and so I kept thinking too that not necessarily about anything that was going on with my case, and like say college source of education, really. I'm like exactly about what it is and how does it work, but anyway, but I'm sure in case of anybody that may want to word that family plans that can pay for a lot of people to go to college nowadays, and I know most like college tuitions and cost. You weren't too that why is it that like quite a few of these college tuitions that that cost more money nowadays than back in those days, but still that I guess that you say that really though that about for how well a story that can be explained about is to word it reasons to why, but still that one of those will be is to word it if I'm going to be what you call one of the sons who earns his degree in digital design for graphic work. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Talk about the family friend story right here on understanding about about field trips and campuses, and about the best of memory also. But anyway, talking about like any field trips or anything that talk about conversations, anything, anybody that you're going to be close to also. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.